But I don't think a lot of women marvel anymore they don't really revel in the joy of pleasuring their man at all.
I
And
think it works both ways.
that is probably why so much communication is lost. I think one thing women also have a problem with is posturing their man, right? So they get really aggressive. Certain topics are hard to talk about. And being I'm sorry, I have a lack of better words. It says it in the Bible, right? Weaker vessel, person that needs to come through calm and person that needs to come through, this can get heated. So you need to kind of manipulate the situation to your favor. I've heard some of the people that I've known talk on this say, when is your man most relaxed? After we'd made love. Or if you don't feel like doing that, turn him over, say, I want to give you a massage. What do you think a man is you think he about to be arguing with you, getting a deep tissue? Hell no.
But is he taking you serious? Is he listening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you right now, the only women that I thought about marrying in my entire life had this one thing in common. They knew how to talk to you. They knew how to pass hard information off and make it seem like they actually cared. It's not like they're trying to throw fire at me. It's like, I do need to talk about this. And I know it's hard. They just had a way to caress you like your mother did.
No. Okay. Let me say that I agree with you 50%, Mike, because my husband said, I married you because you never bothered me. And I think he meant mentally. He said, you never bothered me. You never harassed me. Part of that is because as a woman, I feel like there's a healing process from relationship. Like a lot of these men talk about, oh, you guys come in, with this. We do. We all do, though. But I think women catch a lot of the brunt on these platforms because that's where the attention is garnered. You need to do this. You need to do that. But we both need to. So I knew I was a wife. Period. I never knew if I was a mother. I knew I was a wife. Does that make sense? And I'm really giving y'all some tea right here because I normally don't talk about my business. I always knew I was a wife. I knew I was a wife. So I knew I was but I knew I needed to heal because I knew I needed to forget everything that I knew about love from my past and start afresh. So when I met my husband, it didn't matter to me if he called me or not. I liked him, but I was not going to force his hand in love. Does that make sense? But I was not going to play games. So we dated for a year and a half. He proposed 6 months later. We got married. And my husband always said, you never bother me compared to other women. You're a good wife. You made me feel safe, blah, 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 blah. But the part where I say no, my husband was a strong man. I didn't have to prep my husband for a conversation because he also did his healing. My husband did not make me responsible to bear the weight because there's a weight that we have to bear in relationships. And I think that's where you guys do women a disservice because you make women responsible for the totality of the relationship. I can't carry you and me and the kids and the school and the church. That's not fair. And I think that's the part where men can do a better job on these platforms to say, if she comes by way and she's healed and she's healthy and she's done her work, then fellas, here's where you need to do your work. And that's the part of these conversations that we're missing. I never had to prep my husband for a conversation. If he wasn't ready, he said, we're not talking about this right now. And then I would back off. And then he will say the next day, all right, what were you saying yesterday?
That's like a man's man. He a man's man.
Yeah.
That's kind of unfair. I'm sorry.
It's not.
I think y'all do this thing. Hold on, Queen Sheila.
That's why I asked you. Are you talking about your personal?
No.
I'm giving a personal. It's not unfair. I'm giving my personal.
I'm saying. Let me get. That's unfair. Hold on. That's
unfair. Okay.
You're doing the thing that people do in these spaces where it's like, well, my man's a man.
No,
any man that doesn't act. Wait, hold on.
A real life example.
Any man that doesn't act like this is less of a man.
That's not what I said. I never said that.
You inferred it.
Now you're making up stuff.
Can I clarify what's happening?
I'm the one that said he's a man's man, not her.
I never said that.
It was implied. That's what I'm saying.
One at a time. Based on what I said before about the leadership, what's happening, Trigger Mike, is that there's different type of leaderships. There's a leadership that is influential. There's other ones that are dictators, and it's not, bad and good leadership. It's just different type of leadership styles. And one leadership style might work with Queen Shiva, with who she is and the type of personality, and another type of leadership might work with V Taylor. And it's not making more men of a man or whatever, because some men might agree with it and some men might not agree with it because they're not that type of leader. And that's what I meant. Like, if you have someone that is already following you because you're an influential person, that's easy because you don't have to do much.
And my husband grew up with a father in a home, so that makes a 2-parent household, like 35 years deep. So that's also a dynamic that most men don't have. His dad taught him how to be a man. He saw his father interact with his mother. So that's all I wanted to add. It's not right or wrong. That's why I say a lot of people, that's what's missing from these panels. We talk in this atmosphere of not personal. So I'm giving you personal, and you're saying that's not fair. I'm giving you a real life example of how my man showed up and said, we're not talking about that right now.
Like,
how's
he's
that
like
not fair?
Yeah.
For his communicate, he said, we're not doing that.
That should make men want to step up. It shouldn't make you feel low. It should make you say, you know what? That's inspirational. Why don't I want better for myself to become a better man? Instead, it's like, y'all don't expect too much because that makes me feel bad.
I will say this, though. My father used to always say that. He said, don't expect, a lot of men don't know how to communicate. And he used to always say, if you say something and someone doesn't understand, you need to figure out another way to say it to make sure you communicate well. Because proper communication is making sure what you think comes out of your mouth and is understood by the person that you're giving it to. So he's like, okay, if they don't get it, say it again. I would say something. You're like, okay, say it again another way. Tell me another way. And I'm like, Dad, I'm only 12. Like, what do you want from me? But he wanted to make sure we understood different ways to communicate with different people. So if a person didn't understand, we could give it to them in the way they understood. And I do recognize that men don't always communicate like women do, but you have to figure out a way to make sure you express it to them. And I have had men shut down on me, but I'm like, okay, let me back up, reassess it, and then see how I can talk to them to where they understand. Maybe this approach doesn't work. How can I give it to them to where they do understand? Because the whole point is to make sure we both understand each other and we can move forward. And there's some type of resolution. There's a resolve at the end of the day.
So that part that you just said is actually very critical to the conversation, because that's very feminine. When a woman understands that this is not a man, this is not just a man, this is my man. That's the way women are supposed to approach the situation. It is not that there is one cookie cutter way a man is supposed to get communicated to. Women do nothing in these spaces but create new dynamics for men to adapt to be able to get with you. He needs to do this to be with me. Well, guess what? There is a simple thing, the simplest thing you need to do to get your man to love you, respect you, be there for you, provide for you, and protect you. Woman, learn how to communicate with me. Don't put anybody else's standards on me. I'm not their man. I'm not the world's man. I'm your man. It's simple. Reasonable, dependable. Hold on. Reasonable, dependable, consistent. That's all a man need to be. If he is those three things, you can find a way to communicate with him.
The three things again?
The issue, reasonable, dependable, consistent. If he is those three things, you can find a way to communicate effectively with him. We can put it in the top 10 of issues that men are experiencing with modern women, is that you just don't want to.
So why did you knock down? When I gave you an example of how you knocked, and you said the goal is to communicate with your man or your woman the way you did. And when I gave you a personal example, you said that's not fair. So I need you to stay curious in your ideology, right? Because you just tried to say, that's not fair that your husband said that or you said that. No, it's fair in our relationship that if he says he don't want to talk about it right now, he doesn't have to. But on the flip side, you just said a woman's job is to cater to her husband's communication style. So my only recommendation for you, stay curious, stay open. Don't be so fixed.
I honestly don't know where we're at in the conversation to respond.
I'm following. I'm an excellent.
I'm going to watch back.
Okay, gotcha.
Because what she's doing is she's following her man by saying he's not ready to talk about it. She's submitting to his whatever he wants, but you said it's not fair.
No, I think maybe that's where we were. I think that's maybe where we were contextually off. That's not why I said that's not fair. So, yeah, I think for Sade said it, or tried to piece it together, but we can move on for now.
I mean, but I do think that's respectful of Queen Sheba of her man, because if he's not ready to talk, maybe he needs to process and have maybe calm down or whatever.
But that's coming from like a healthy perspective. How many men know how to even communicate their feelings in general to even come back to that conversation? Some men will just dodge the entire conversation and don't give that woman a safe space to be like, okay, I'm not going to load this on him tonight because I know that he is going to create a space for me to communicate how I feel about whatever I'm having an issue with. Like there's some men that's just like, no, I don't want to talk about it. No, I want to talk about it. No, I don't want to talk about it. And she's like, well, when are we going to talk about it? And then it becomes like a nagging thing. Like how many women are being put in those type of situations where the men just run from the conversation?
I want to say that I think it's on both sides. I don't want to say that because I've seen it where a man will bring something up and a woman doesn't want to talk about it. The only issue I have with that is cool. If you need a little bit of grace to meditate, calm down, to prepare yourself to have that conversation, at least set a time, a place where it can happen again. Because so often you say, I don't want to talk about it, and you guys never talk about it. Usually when it comes up again is when there's another argument or somebody's fed up or somebody's venting. Then you'll go down a list of things about what's been going on. It's like, why you didn't come to me? So I think it's very important that if you decide that you can't talk about it right now, then pick a time, say, let's talk about it later. Let's talk about it tomorrow morning, and then stick with it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think certain things need to be addressed because what happens with, and I'm a man, I can only say it from my point of view, but sometimes if you bring it up and you want to discuss it, you're probably fed up because I've heard this over and over again. I'm not ready to talk about it. We need to talk about it because we never do talk about it. So then you guys are just going at it all the time because communication is not happening. Yep. So I think people need to focus on how important communication is. Yep. on both sides. And I see it happen with men and women.
Can I add on something? I think the reason why we're struggling with all of this is because a lot of marriages don't have that oneness. It sounds like Queen Sheba and her husband's got that oneness where they understand their comfort. They're just willing to put themselves in their spouse's shoes at all times. And so if she's uncomfortable, she want him to take a step back. I think most marriages, we're missing that oneness, so we don't know how to communicate. We've never learned them. We've never watched them. We've never prayed for them. Like it's a lot of things that's leading to this pointing the fingers things that we're not really looking at. And I think it's the fact that we're not honing into the biblical principles of what God wanted for our marriages, which is oneness. Because if you're one, you would never say something to really hurt your spouse. If you're one, you will wait until the time is right. If you're one, you're going to find that comfort space to have that conversation. If you're one, you're going to be willing to not talk about it today and hold it in and close your mouth, still sleep with your husband tonight, and then talk about it on Thursday when he's ready. With that oneness, you will be willing to sacrifice and compromise and wait until the time is right. So the majority of our marriages are missing that. That's why we're pointing the fingers, don't hold ourselves accountable, deflecting, not comfortable, lack vulnerability, and we're struggling.
I agree with that, but I also want to bring up the fact that there are men, like B. Taylor said, that will have something happen, say they don't want to talk about it, disappear, come back on Thursday and act like it never happened, and they don't want to talk about it. That thing never existed. So I think that there should be a time where we talk and we're like, okay, when are we going to talk? You don't want to talk right now. Can we set a date for when it can be discussed? Because sometimes it's like, oh, you still want to talk about that? That was like 4 days ago. Mm-hmm. But it's still
I think you have to pick your fight.
But I think you kind of get to that point.
You got to pick our fights, though, ladies.
You got to pick your fights as a married woman. I was saying.
Every conversation and everything. Being married, that's why we're struggling. Because you want to talk about everything that's really minimum. If it was something small, you might have to brush it under the rug. And then like a month later, poo, But
that's the thing. If you keep brushing and brushing and brushing, when that big fight happens, and it's like this.
Brush on the rug. You should never brush it under the rug. What my therapist has told me is that women, we have a lot of feelings, and they are valid. Okay, but everything don't need to be said. So get your little journal, and you write that out. This mother Alpha said that. Write whatever you want to put in that journal about that man. Don't let him see it. But write whatever you want to put and whatever you want to say to him, and then read it back. And when you're calmed down, and then actually just know what you actually want to bring to him. What's the big problem? What's the little problem? What's the
that's brushing under the rug?
Yeah, you gotta not brush on the rug because you're writing those feelings out. Because we need, as women, we need to get it out. We're not meant to hold in all those emotions because we explode.
And we're not meant to express all of them neither, I would say. So I think there's a healthy balance
to the person, but we can express them in a healthy way by writing them out. Because some, that's just like a healthy method. There's some women who
I think when it comes to relationship, I don't think a woman, I'm just saying as a married woman, you have to pick your battles, Kelly. I think you said, what about the guy? And both you and B. Taylor said, what if he nevers? Then that's where you have the power to turn his head by way of no words, right? If you really understand the essence of a wife. And on these panels, a lot of women talk about the essence of a woman as being your vagina. That's completely not it. The essence is everything that God has possessed you with that's opposite of what he has, right? Because if it was a sexual organ, then we can just seal the deal tonight by way of not talking and coming together by way of physical contact, and it's over. But yet you feel depleted and you still didn't have that conversation. So don't let anybody ever trick you and say the way you influence a man is by way of your vagina. Well, why do a lot of women lay empty in bed and feeling unfulfilled after she's done that? So if there's a conversation you need to have, and 4 days later you haven't had it, you haven't had that, and it's still in your heart, then have it. Initiate it. Don't wait on him. Initiate it. Say, hey, listen, I don't want to make this too long. This has been on my mind. Make it very, very brief, out the way, and be done with it, even if he doesn't respond. Because he may give you his undivided attention and not say shit. But he gave you the floor to talk. Does that make sense?
That is motherfucking true. You be like, are you listening to me? And they're supposed to be listening.
That's all I'm saying. Sometimes you have to initiate.